feel like I'm opening a can of worms with this video. This is supposed to be an open conversation, an objective analysis. However, as objective as I'm trying to be, this is just going to be from my perspective and the perspective of others that I consulted with. Giallo Submarine asked me to elaborate a little bit more on Bible Belt culture here in the southern US, specifically because I mentioned it can be oppressive in certain ways, okay? So he wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And that's when I started, really trying to objectively look at the Bible Belt environment in which I live, and started reading online and started asking people that I know. So after all of that, I pieced together this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what the Bible Belt is and speculate on how it has affected overall culture in the area, in the region. I have lived in the Bible Belt my entire life, so I have a little bit of like a personal perspective, but I'm also going to refer to a lot of other sources. I'm not trying to target any specific denomination or blame anyone for anything in particular. A lot of what has shaped Bible Belt culture has been indirect, or has been a sort of trickle-down effect. A lot of it is just old habits that have been passed on from generation to generation that are hard to break. So, all that out of the way, let's dive in. What is the Bible Belt? I'm going to read from my phone, and this came from Wikipedia. The Bible Belt is a region of the southern United States in which socially conservative Protestant Christianity plays a strong role in society and politics, and church attendance across the denominations is generally higher than the nation's average. Whereas the states with the highest percentage of people identifying as non-religious are in the West and New England. In the Bible Belt state of Alabama, which is where I live, only 12% of people identify as non-religious. Tennessee has the highest proportion of evangelical Protestants at 52%. So for those of you who may not know, here are some of the Protestant denominations that you'll see around here: Southern Baptist, Methodist, but we have a whole bunch of others like Church of Christ, Presbyterian, I don't know, and then like a whole bunch of other just like small denominations. We have a lot. A study by the American Bible Society determined the 10 most Bible-minded cities are Knoxville, Tennessee, Shreveport, Louisiana, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Springfield, Missouri, Charlotte, North Carolina, Lynchburg, Virginia, and Huntsville/Decatur, Alabama, and Charleston, West Virginia. Another study that was mentioned on Wikipedia showed that in my state, Alabama, 77% of people said that they thought religion was very important. That's huge. So as you can imagine, that has to affect part of our culture here and our behavior and our just societal norms. Like, how do we conduct ourselves around other people when almost 80% of people report that religion is highly important? There has been research that links evangelical Protestantism with social conservatism. Of course, I'm sure most of you guys would infer that. And a couple of websites mentioned that Bible Belt states generally have much poorer education systems and a higher rate of obesity and heart disease. I'm not sure if that is due to Bible Belt culture. I think that might have a little bit more to do with the fact that we have a lot of rural areas and a lot of poverty. I'm not sure. I didn't dig too deep into that. I don't want to say that I think the Bible Belt is a cause for heart disease, obesity, and poor education, but I did see that come up a few times in my research. Now in this video, I'm not trying to trash the Bible Belt by any means. It can be a very charming place to be in some situations, but I do think it has put some limitations on us. Some of the words that I saw in my research, someone said the Bible Belt is dominated by religious institutions. Another word I saw was stronghold, that it has a stronghold on our politics and our society. And I think those words are indicative of the pervasiveness of religion here in the Bible Belt. So, what is it like living in the Bible Belt? I don't want to get too much into specific instances or like too many anecdotes. I want to just talk about more of the like broader norms that you'll see here. First of all, the memes and the stereotypes and all that are true. Churches are everywhere. In fact, the closest building in proximity to me right now is a church. Next, I will say something good. People are nice. People are nice here, like just people you interact with, like people hold the door open for you, or like, you know, they're nice because that's, you know, how you should conduct yourself, being nice to others. They're nice until you give them a reason not to be. As UnitedStatesNow.org said it, Christianity is deeply embedded in everyday life, and drinking, gambling, and abortion are a few of the items that are extremely frowned upon within communities in the Deep South. I can confirm a lot of states have laws against gambling, including my state. And once I thought about it, I realized I've never gambled in my life. I've never even bought a lottery ticket. I mean, I'm not saying I think I'm missing out. Like, I don't really care either way personally, but never. Here in the Bible Belt, we have other interesting laws, particularly surrounding alcohol. Alcohol is generally taboo. A lot of denominations are like, it is just a straight up sin to drink. So things differ from city to county, but a lot, like we have dry cities, dry counties. Some are dry on Sunday, some are dry on Sunday before noon. Like, it varies. But things have been changing, things have been improving. Like in my county, you used to not be able to buy alcohol until afternoon on Sundays, but now you can buy it anytime on Sundays. So things are like always changing a little bit. The town that my husband grew up in was dry until like a couple of years ago, just totally dry. But everywhere you go, it's a little different. I mean, there are some places where if you're in a restaurant, let's say you're at a Mexican restaurant and you have a margarita and you wanted to move to another table where your friends are at or something, you aren't allowed to pick up the margarita and carry it to another table. It's a bunch of weird little stuff like that. Next, being LGBTQ+ is, as you can imagine, not easy, particularly in the more rural areas. I cannot speak for that experience, but I did start just Googling LGBT rights in Alabama, and there's a lot there. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. There's a lot of reading to do. There's been so many laws and there's constant change. So that would be its own video. But, you know, from what I've seen with my own eyes, it's not easy. In fact, we have a church sign here in town that I'll just show it here. UnitedStatesNow.org also mentioned the censorship, the role that the Bible Belt culture has in censorship in schools, like banning books and things of that nature. And I thought, I'm sure all public schools all over the world have issues with sex education, but I think our sex education totally sucked. And going off of that, people that I asked about their Bible Belt experience wanted to mention purity culture, which is hard, especially on girls, and getting birth control at in your teens is kind of taboo. And people they always have to be like, it's for my acne. It's just for my acne. Or it's for my cramps. If it somehow came up that you're on birth control, you had to explain why. And that it was not because of sex. Okay, I did reading on a lot of forums, and I saw several people mention that you could get fired or not hired if they find out you're not a Christian. I know, like, legally you're not allowed to do that, okay? But that's what people are saying. There are many job postings that they'll say in the posting, we are a Christian business. And many doctors' offices or any other kind of waiting room you're in, like, they'll be playing Christian music. It's yeah, of course, there are many Christian businesses around here. Okay, next, relationship taboos. This is an example of how Bible Belt culture has directly influenced my life choices. So I got married young. I got married at 21 because you can't live with someone that you're not married to. You can't live with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever unless you're married to them. I was kind of forced into that situation. Like when I graduated college, you couldn't go live anywhere. Like there's nowhere to go. I was engaged to my husband, but my mom was like, we will not pay for this wedding or like support this if you move in with him before you're married. So I couldn't get like that October wedding that I wanted. I had to have that June wedding so I could move in with him right after I graduated college. Another little like thing that you may have heard about is, let's say you have a boyfriend or girlfriend and you go out of town and you go visit the parents. You aren't allowed to sleep in the same bed with them at your parents' house. You guys have to have your own beds, your own rooms. Not till you're married. Speaking of getting married young, my sister got married I got married at 21, which wasn't that young, but my sister got married at 18. It's just what you have to do. And similar to that, people start having kids really young. If you get married by 20, then yeah, you're gonna start having kids. What else do you do? It's like an unspoken moral obligation. It's just like the next step. But not for me. I am child-free by choice. And people are perplexed by that. They will, interrogate us. Like, what? Why? How are you going to pass on your line? Like, who's going to take care of you when you're old? Isn't that selfish? You'll change your mind. I had someone mention to me when I was asking Bible Belt questions that getting a medically necessary, like to live, had to get a hysterectomy. She had to see like 6 different doctors before she found someone that would give her one. But that's probably not just a Bible Belt thing. But just felt like mentioning it. So yes, going off of the getting married young, having kids young, the next thing worth mentioning is family life. There is a heavy emphasis on family life. Maybe that's the whole country, but that's like all I'm surrounded by is families, people with children. Next, I want to talk about dress codes, both for school and work. When I moved from South Carolina, which was still Bible Belt, but when I moved from South Carolina to Alabama, I was in 5th grade, and I suddenly started getting in trouble all the time for my shorts being too short. I was like, these are just the shorts my mom gave me. Like, what's wrong with my legs? Why are my legs so obscene that I'm getting in huge trouble? My cousin from Tennessee was saying like she had to wear shorts down to her knees for church stuff. We had like the fingertip rule, so the shorts need to come to the length of your fingertips. They didn't make shorts like that unless they were big, ugly cargo shorts. Anyway, always like about covering up. Your straps can't be too skinny. It's a lot. And I don't know if other places in the country are like that, but it's very strict. And I also want to talk about like dress code at work. Generally, workplaces don't like you to have tattoos, piercings, unnatural hair, or natural hair sometimes. They just want you to look like this, and it's so frustrating because I know like that's also in the whole country too, but I can't help but think that the Bible Belt kind of amplifies that. But yeah, those sorts of things are generally forbidden in the workplace. I have faith that will change though. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is artistic expression. Now, as I hinted at in my Disenchanted video, I feel like Bible Belt culture can sort of inhibit artistic expression. Bible Belt culture at times seems to discourage standing out, and I think because of that, a lot of people aren't themselves. So one of the people I spoke to said that they censor their art portfolio when submitting it for work. Like they take out certain things that are too spooky or whatever. They only submit their boring art. And that's really sad to me. Even my husband's band, he has some songs with some cuss words in it. Oh my God. And when they would play live, there are two members of the band that were like, could you please not cuss? Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So my theory is, I mean, no shade to anyone in particular, but Bible Belt culture, which discourages standing out, perhaps inhibits artistic expression. How many metal bands do you know from Alabama? How many famous artists do you know from Alabama? Tell me, why is there seemingly less creativity flowing out of the Bible Belt? Similar to that, I see a lack of diversity, not just, ethnically, racially, what have you, but there's not a lot of subculture activity. Another person I talked to mentioned that here in the Bible Belt, it's not just about being a Christian. Going to church is just as important as your relationship with God. Basically, you can't be an independent Christian. You have to be going to church. And similarly, people are going to church because it's the right thing to do. My family went to church on and off. We weren't like really into it, but we went sometimes for large stretches of time because that's the right thing to do. You know how they do that in The Simpsons? They go to church because that's what you're supposed to do. We felt like The Simpsons, always like trying to get to church and just be there, even though we don't really care because it was the right thing to do. Okay, this next thing I want to talk about is very random, but it's something I've had a lot of conversations about. There's the paranormal taboo, and it's really sad, honestly. So when it comes to like tarot, any divination, so like tarot, Ouija boards, psychics, any type of paranormal investigating, entertaining stories of ghosts or anything like that, it's a huge taboo because all of that is under the devil umbrella. That is all of the devil. And especially in my workplace, I work with a lot of older men, and when they find out that I'm into that stuff, like, it's like therapy. They will come into my office and we will just talk about all this stuff because they have nobody else to talk to about this. I had one coworker, he's retired now, but he was quite old, and he liked the ham radio. And I think he liked taking pictures of ghosts and stuff. And you could tell he was conflicted. He was like, my wife says I shouldn't mess with that stuff because it's not of God. And I know she's right. It's just really sad because these guys, 3 of them in particular, are so isolated in that interest and kind of, I don't want to say shamed, but they feel really guilty for being interested in that sort of thing. And that's something that I think is really sad. But even with me, when I go to like visit my family in Tennessee, I don't want to tell them I'm going to a Bigfoot convention. Because, that's of the devil too. It's absurd, isn't it? We are back. I had to take a little break to let my camera cool off. Where did I leave off? Okay, yeah, so Giallo Submarine had asked me, like, so where you live, are atheists and agnostics, like, out? And the answer is generally no. They might tell you if you ask, but generally no, because they'll get treated differently and people will make a fuss, and it's not always like you get attacked for it, but people are going to treat you different. So for example, I have this friend, and he was telling me that his boss invited him and his entire department to go to a church service that like kind of had to do with their job. And my friend was like, no, thank you. He declined because he's like, I'm not a Christian. I don't want to go to church. And his boss was like, what? And from then on, his boss treated him differently. And that became my friend's identifier at the workplace. It's like, he's not a Christian. Like, he's not one of us. His boss even went and told his boss above him that my friend here isn't a Christian. It's best just to not come out with that. As someone on a forum said, It's a smooth ride as long as you keep your mouth shut. That's in regards to getting by in the Bible Belt. It's a smooth ride as long as you keep your mouth shut. As long as you don't go against the grain. Another thing we see here a lot in the Bible Belt is this recruiting culture from churches. You can't just let people be. Like my friend who came out as not a Christian, others can't just let him be. They have to try to help him. I understand the logic there. They have to try to help him. They have to invite him to church. They have to convince him. But there's this constant pressure to recruit, to attract people to the church. I remember in college, certain girls would start being really nice to me and inviting me for coffee, and I'm like, why? It's because they want to talk about Jesus. People will hand out literature, people will knock on your door, people will write you letters. It causes a lot of tension. I mean, it's kind of like the way that an MLM, if your friend joins an MLM, it can cause tension between you and them because then you just kind of feel like a potential customer. It causes that same kind of tension in relationships here. Everyone will invite you to church. My coworkers have invited me to church. Even my HVAC repairman has invited me to his church. Another thing that I read on many forums about living in the Bible Belt is that people will be judgmental, not just religious wise, but if you're different in some kind of way, people will be judgmental. And it's not necessarily confrontational, people won't come up to you and attack you or whatever. But sometimes it is, but sometimes just the way they look at you or the way they treat you. It'll be subtle things. They might avoid you. And I feel like a lot of people have this sort of pressure just to not stand out because they don't want to be ostracized or they don't want anyone to make a fuss over them. Another thing you see a lot of here in the Bible Belt is strict households, strict upbringings. We all knew someone that wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. We all knew someone that wasn't allowed to watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And going off of that, even though my family wasn't devout, we were still a really strict household. I wasn't allowed to do a whole lot. And it wasn't for religious reasons, but I think it was indirectly due to Bible Belt culture. Someone on a forum said, being a non-Christian leaves your child open to being bullied by the Christians. A bunch of people on forums were saying that when they were kids, they lied to their peers about did they go to church and what church they went to. And that's hilarious because I used to do the same thing. When we moved to Alabama, everyone's like, so what church do you go to? And I was like, I go to this Methodist church. It's a few towns over. I really would lie about what church I went to so that I wouldn't say bullied is the word, but they will not associate with you if you don't go to church. And they'll straight up, when they're kids, you know how kids are, kids will straight up tell you you're going to hell. Another thing we do here in the Bible Belt is we pray before everything, pray before our meals and stuff. And I thought about this because I read this on forums, but I really thought about it. We do that at work. If we have a work breakfast or something or a work lunch, we're gonna bow our heads and pray before it. And it's never a question, is everyone okay with this? We just do it. And I mean, and for the record, I don't care. We can pray, whatever. I'm a spiritual person. Some people are uncomfortable by that, but they could never say so because then they'll be that non-Christian over there. This has been a big list. So here at the end, I'm going to leave it off with this quote from a question that was posted on Quora. In many Bible Belt states, the slogan is God, family, and football. And if you don't like it, feel free to leave. That is so true. I mean, those are the big three components of life here in the Bible Belt. God, family, football. Which is fine. I mean, these people love those three things, and I am happy for them. But my goodness, I don't care about football. It's hard to find someone with things incoming. The biggest catalyst for me doing this Bible Belt deep dive was, like I said, the question of, does the Bible Belt repress creative expression because people feel pressured to kind of lay low, to kind of shrink back, to blend in? It's possible. Or maybe those people just leave. Maybe those people just leave and don't shrink. So yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to hate on Christianity or religion, but instead just try to assess the culture that was born from it, at least from its foundations, historical foundations. A lot of this culture is just long-standing norms that we've been born into and our society is fixed into. It's not necessarily the active work of anyone trying to enact these standards. And a lot of this isn't just Bible Belt, a lot of it's rural. It's just rural culture as compared to urban culture. And I am not saying church isn't great. I think church provides this type of community that humans need that is absent from modern society. And it does cultivate just this culture of general politeness, you know, opening doors for people, smiling and nodding, waving at people, which is sweet. But when religious morals and norms spill over and become so entwined with life, it can get confusing. I think it can create friction and perhaps some repression. So, oh my gosh. Wow, that was long. I don't know if I'll put this up or if I'll keep it up or if I'll keep the comments on. We'll see. This is kind of touchy. This is a touchy situation, but we'll see what happens. So tell me, what is it like where you live? Are you in the Bible Belt? Have you been to the Bible Belt? Do you live outside the Bible Belt? What I'm describing, does it sound like what you know or where you live? Tell me your thoughts. Or if you are in the Bible Belt and you have more good things to say about Bible Belt culture, please let me know. I tried to ask people for that stuff and most people couldn't tell me much. So I hope this was fun for you. I hope you enjoyed. I love talking about culture and cultural differences between states, between regions, between countries. I think it's fun. So I had fun learning about the Bible Belt, this place in which I live, and I hope you did too. Ciao for now.